Hey guys, this is TDK, Mr. So Real, and in today's video we are talking about part 2 of balancing the division to make it more fun. In the last video, if you missed that, we talked about spatial control and the super monkey ball syndrome. Now in this video we're going to primarily focus on weapons, weapon balancing, and weapon talents and things like that. So let's get started with part 2. Straight up, let me start by saying my gun is better than yours. This is the fundamental thinking of most players in the division, and it's kind of the way that a lot of players in the division categorize themselves, or basically feel good about themselves when they play the game. I have the best gun, I can kill you, you ain't shit. that's kind of the way a lot of people play it. So let's first start off by talking about what are the guns, what are they good for, and how they should be implemented in the game. Now remember, in this series, the super monkey ball syndrome is done. There's a cooldown on the roll. Spatial control is what we are aiming for, and this is how we can synergize team play and making the game fun. So let's start off by talking about shotguns. Shotguns. So the first weapon on the list will be shotguns. I'm going to talk about what are these weapons, and what do they do well and what don't they do well. So shotguns are awesome at the I can smell what you had for lunch super close range. They're good because of their massive close range damage, but their range is very limited. Higher rate of fire shotguns do less damage, but can pump out damage in quick succession to stun the enemy. I'm sure you've seen that in PvE if you've used it in the PvE. And more accurate, slower rate of fire, high damage shotguns can deal massive amounts of damage that should only be rivaled by sniper shots. Shotgun's manual reload can be a problem and is very long, but shotties with a magazine, the faster firing variants, reload faster but do, like I said, less damage since they are usually firing faster. SMGs. SMGs are great in the short to short mid-range for their unmatched rate of fire, quick reload speed, great stability, and hip-fire accuracy. SMGs have more range than a shotgun, so in the short mid-range game, they should be the kings. But because of their limited range, the high damage fall off, once the SMGs get into the real mid-range game, it turns their bullets into spitballs, and it makes those types of engagements really difficult. LMGs. Talking about LMGs, this is how LMGs should, quote, air quotes, should work. LMGs should be good at the short mid-range or the regular mid-range. So when I say short mid, it's kind of like a little bit out of the short range, but not quite the mid-range. You'll kind of understand. They should be very good in this area for their stopping power and their hard hitting rounds. An excellent argument for the LMG is their huge clip size and zone control capabilities. Please keep those words in memory. Zone control capabilities. This is how I'd love to see LMGs used. So one downside to LMGs is their slower rate of fire and the longer, or basically the longest reload speed of all of the weapons. They hit hard but lack the rate of fire, stability, and accuracy to contend with a well-placed SMG clip in terms of DPS in the close range. But they have a large clip that if the enemy isn't careful, they can take some serious damage if they don't use cover in their approach. And this is something to think about for PvP, and also hopefully it would be used in PvE as well. I really want to see the LMGs have a damage buff so that they can control space, especially in terms of keeping out shotgunners, keeping out SMG users, and making it so that those players have to be a little bit more crafty in the way that they get in to do that massive damage that those weapons can do. ARs. ARs should be great from the mid to mid-long range for their longer than SMG range and accuracy. Having such range means that their bullet stability isn't as good as an SMG, but it's still more stable than an LMG. The faster rate of fire than an LMG with better stability means that they don't pack as much of a punch. A good balanced weapon, but it loses in the short range weapons to shotguns and to SMGs, but in a longer range fight they can beat out SMGs, shotguns, and in some cases even the LMGs. Now what I mean by the mid to mid-long range is the mid-long range would probably be something well out of the 20 meters. That's kind of a little bit pushing it. So when you talk about those ranges, AR should be still viable, but they shouldn't, be used like, really far out, like 30 meters or 40 meters. That's when we talk about sniper rifles. So let's get on to those. Sniper rifles should dominate the mid-long to long-range game with their hard-hitting, life-threatening rounds. Because the semi-autos fire faster than bolt-action variants, they are killers in the mid-long-range game, but bolt actions should hit so hard that from longer ranges they can easily take someone out in 1, 2, 3 headshots. But if a sniper misses these longer range engagements, it lets the kind of mid-range people get closer and kind of fill in that gap to really threaten the longer range fight of a sniper. And while we're on the topic of sniper rifles, there's one other thing that I feel very passionate about and I don't really hear any other YouTubers talking about, and that is that the M1A is completely broken and it needs to either be put in line with the other high rate of fire, the 300 RPM rate of fire sniper rifles, or in terms of their damage, or they need to be removed basically. I think that the bolt actions could use some loving in terms of their damage. I think that their damage should be increased and that those single headshots should do a lot more damage than they do. And I think that the M1As are in such a sweet spot with the amount of damage that they do and the rate of fire that they really put the other sniper rifles in a bad light and make it so that nobody really wants to use them. So I think that, yeah, fixing the M1As or getting rid of them is something that needs to happen in terms of weapon balancing, or you won't really see any other sniper rifles come into the limelight because the bolt actions don't do enough damage for the time that it takes, and the other high rate of fire snipers just don't do enough damage, period. That's just something that I feel. You can disagree if you like, but yeah, that's just my opinion. Alright, so now that we're all on the same page in terms of spatial control and where these weapons would be good if we had, some kind of optimal balancing in terms of damage and threatening players from coming in and threatening the AI from rushing you. Let's talk about how to make the game more fun and basically more attractive so that people will start to experiment with different weapon types and to find different weapons that would be good for their team to synergize more control, more damage, and basic ways of pressuring AI and enemy opponents. So when we look at loot and weapon diversity, we really want to make things more interesting, in particular weapon bonuses. This is where I think the game really lacks. I think all weapons should get some kind of bonus, not just SMGs, not just sidearms, and not just snipers. Some kind of special weapon bonus that gives that class of weapon some kind of sexiness to not only make all of the weapons different, but make them varied enough so that they're useful in certain roles related to team play and attractive enough to make players want to see what the other classes of weapons are all about. Now, these are some of my ideas for how I think this should go. You may have your own feelings and opinions about them. I'm sure other YouTubers have mentioned some things, but I'm going to go with things that I've been thinking about for over the past month. And please, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know if you think that would work or if they don't work. So let's get started. SMGs already have crit chance, so I really don't think they need anything else when it comes to their special, I guess, bonus. Sniper rifles also have headshot damage bonus. I don't think they need anything else. They're good where they are. Pistols have this really weird bonus where if you're at half health, you get more damage or something like that. I don't think they necessarily need anything else, but depending on how we shift a little bit of the meta with some of the other weapons, I think that pistols having some kind of status effect utility talent would be really good. I think that may make pistols viable in some situations, but I'm not really banking on that. I want to save some of those things for other weapons. So let's talk about the other weapons that I think really do need some kind of talent on them. Shotguns. Since shotguns are an up-close weapon, I say we give them a guaranteed armor damage. This would make playing shotty in PvE cool for rushing in and getting enemy armor down fast, and if your team fire is working properly, it would drop the enemy quick. Shotties already have a kind of stagger effect in PvE on them, so cutting the armor along with the destructive perk could make for a really awesome PvE weapon. For PvP, I think that these armor bonuses should count against players. Now with the armor cap being at 75%, I think there should be a way that the destructive perk and having some weapon that really cuts through enemy armor to make those kills hurt be a thing. This would make seeing a shotgunner run up become a very quick priority in terms of spatial control. If you notice somebody's rolling up, taking cover, rolling up and getting in close and they've got a shotgun, you tell your teammates and then you guys focus fire on burning him down and making sure that he doesn't get any closer. That would put a little more tension and pressure on the gameplay, and it would make it fun for the shotgunners trying to get in to do what they do, which would be to eat through enemy armor and make you really weak. So yeah, destructive should be a thing that if you would really want on a shotgun, and I think that having shotguns with armor destruction capabilities would make them a force to be reckoned with in the short game for PvP and for PvE. LMGs. So the LMGs, I came up with this concept way before the 1.2 patch was even a thing, before it was announced and all of the gear sets, the new gear sets were announced. So have a listen at this and then you'll kind of see where I'm going. I think LMGs should be the mid-range kings that keep enemy AI and also other players out. So to do this, let's give LMGs a passive bleed chance. say around maybe 10% or maybe even less, depending, because they have such larger clips. This would make it so that people who get in the wrong areas would pretty much get knocked down by bleed, and they wouldn't be able to run away. They'd have to take cover. So if you're a shotgunner trying to rush in, if the LMG guy sees you, he's dumping on you, then you start bleeding. You can't run up anymore. You'd have to roll, and you only have 2 rolls, so you have to be very careful. Again, these ideas are more for implementing the spatial control aspect that's really missing from the PvP part of the game. In terms of PvE, having bleed on the AI, I think, could also be good, stopping them from rushing you. How many times have you played the incursion where the shotgunners just rushed up on you? From a far range, yeah, they should be able to do that, but from the mid-range, if you had an LMG player who was really kind of dumping on them, it would slow them down, and then the other players could help out and take those enemies out. And I think that would be a really good and fun thing to put into the game. The other thing about the bleed is that when the enemies, especially PvP enemies, are bleeding, they're not really recovering. So you'd have to have a medic on your team to kind of save your life and get you out of those really sticky situations. Having these kinds of status effects on weapons, I think, would be good. Having a fair percentage on them, I think, would make the game more balanced. And this is something, I'm not really quoting any real numbers. This is something that the devs could look into and then decide what percentage of a bleed chance should be available for the LMGs. Now remember, the LMGs are large caliber weapons. They should be making people bleed anyway. And I think that they could also use for a damage buff, because they really don't hit hard at all. If you've ever played with an LMG in PvE, they don't do dick. I mean, they're horrible. They don't really do anything, and yeah, I really couldn't recommend using them for anything. So by having a kind of area of effect control mechanism to them that's really strong, I think it would really play to the weapon itself and make it something worth looking into if you're a support player on the team, or someone who's controlling the zone and not really the rusher who's going in for the kill. ARs. Since ARs are good for longer ranges, I say why not give them a damage buff. I don't think ARs really do that much damage, especially to enemies that have some kind of shield. I don't think the ARs should do any kind of special shield or armor damage buff, but I think their base damage, once the shield is down, should be really good. And this would help if you have a shotgunner that got in and he's really hitting on somebody, but he gets taken out. The other person's armor would still be down, and then that guy from the mid-range with the auto rifle could potentially take the person out fairly easy. So along with the damage buff, I'd also like to see some kind of disorientation added to headshots with the auto rifles. Now you might say something like, if you can hit I don't know, about 3 or 4 or maybe even 10 shots with the headshot to an enemy, then it would trigger some kind of disorient effect or some kind of screen shake that would kind of throw the reticle of your opponent off a bit. And this is to encourage longer range play. So if you have someone rushing in, then you could shoot at them to kind of disorient them so that their roll doesn't roll as far as it would, or it rolls the wrong way or something like that. Something to kind of keep people on their toes. But it would have to be something skill based where you have to get a certain number of headshots in order to get this kind of status effect to work. And again, having a healer on your team would mitigate that status effect. And this would be good from the mid-range to deal with LMG guys. So if you really want to get in but you can't because that LMG guy is hitting you and making you bleed and stopping you, someone from the outside with an AR could shoot at him, mess up his vision. He's shooting all over the place because LMGs don't have that stability buff anymore and they're kind of going wild. You could easily start to push in and pressure more to get in, and I think this would help out by having some kind of status effect and a little bit more damage on the ARs because they again have higher caliber rounds than SMGs, so they should kind of be the king primary in terms of their utility and damage output. Now, before I talked about not really giving the pistols any kind of bonus, but when I think about it more, I think maybe having something like Ignite built into pistols. The Ignite is the thing that puts people on fire from the first bullet. Now, if you take out consumables, all right, so that's another thing that we need to address is the fire bullets, the explosive bullets, all of that shit's got to go, because it really doesn't make sense that you can do it at any time, and you can do it up to 3 times depending on how long the engagement goes. But if you take all of that out and make it so that if you want to set someone to fire with a bullet, you have to use Ignite, and Ignite would kind of be one of those things that's exclusive to the pistols. And again, this would have a chance. Not saying that every time you pull out your pistol you're going to have fire bullets shooting out of it. Saying that the first bullet has a, 15%, 10% chance of setting somebody on fire. It's a low chance, but you never know. You might be in that one situation where somebody is getting a little too close and you running out of bullets and you don't think you can take them. You switch to that pistol and start shooting at them, and then they catch on fire and you're like, yes, and then you tell your team and they see that guy dancing around in the little fire dance, and then you light his ass up, kill him. I think that would be really cool. But having some kind of I think status effects on weapons kind of built in would bring variety to the game and make them a lot more interesting. So I think all of these suggestions would really encourage team play and kind of get that spatial control thing a little bit more legs, so that people would play in groups and try to tackle other players and other AI opponents as a group, and having some kind of synergy with their weapons to work together, because right now everyone is running SMG. And that occasional friend of yours has a really good AR, but nobody's really running LMG unless they're trolling. Few people are starting to use shotguns now with the new meta, but I think it could be improved. But I would really like to see something where spatial control is the focus, and getting back into the cover-based shooter that the game was proposed to be. Alright, these are my ideas and about how to deal with weapons and fix weapons. Of course, I'm sure all of you have some ideas about how to improve the weapons and balance them out. I'd love to hear them. Please remember to leave some kind of comment in the comment section. If you like this video, if you agree with any of these talking points, please give me that thumbs up. Don't really have a shit ton of subscribers like a lot of other YouTubers, but I hope that this content sparks some kind of conversation and gets people talking and kind of puts people on the same page in terms of where they would like to see the game go. If you'd like to see the game shift more into a spatial control, high damage, kind of rewarding damage with the weapon game, where you can synergize things with your team and have your talents and perks kind of work together to make incursions and raid type activities and missions and things a lot more fun and enjoyable and making those kind of special moments that only the Division can bring, then yeah, remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section. I'm always trying to improve my content in some kind of way. If there's something you want to say, positive or negative, leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to hear about it, talk about it. And until the next video, this is Khan, TDK Mr. So Real. I am out.